Hello, Misfits, and welcome. In today's video, we are doing a deep dive into my whole process, my recording setup, the programs and equipment that I use, how I, record my different games and videos, all of that stuff, and telling you just a little bit about myself and why I have this channel in the first place. So, let's get into it. Before we go any further, I do want to talk to you guys a bit about Into the AM. Into the AM is a men's apparel brand that really values creativity and self-expression. I've talked about them numerous times here on the channel, and my favorite stuff that they do are their graphic tees. They are just so cool and so comfortable. I'm wearing one right now. And yeah, you can spy me wearing them in like a multitude of videos. So it's the month of November, fastly approaching December. And so, of course, that means that Black Friday and Cyber Monday are just around the corner. And obviously, Into the AM is having a big, massive sale for that. If you use the link in the description below, you can get 60% off for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And you can also use my code MISFIT at checkout to get an additional 10% off for an even greater deal. This is like such a steal to get that much off for like legit, like the coolest shirts that you could possibly own. So yeah, definitely like capitalize on this sale going on and use the link below to get that 60% off, but don't forget to use the code MISFIT to get an additional 10% off. I feel like I should, definitely be upfront about the fact that like I'm an incredibly small channel. I don't have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I don't have a paid editor. I don't do this as a full-time job. And everything that I do for this channel, I do in the very limited free time that I have on the side. So, there's definitely going to be aspects of this that aren't perfect or aspects of my process that aren't perfect. There's also probably going to be ways to do what I do better and flashier and maybe even easier. I think on top of all of that, like, it should also be noted that I'm a YouTuber on a budget. I'm a single household on a public educator's salary in the United States. So I don't have unlimited funds, and because of that, I am going to be limited in some of the stuff that I can afford or have access to. So also keep that in mind as well. So let's start at the very beginning. Let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about why I started putting stuff on a channel to begin with. So, really all of this started because I ran out of storage on my own computer. This wasn't a channel for making videos for people. This was a channel for storing the audio recordings of my D&D games in a place where my players had access to it. That's really where all of this happened. So like partway through what we refer to as campaign 1, we started recording the audio of our games. It was like 5 or 6 levels into the campaign before we started recording. And I really enjoyed it. I'm not the best notes taker at times when the game is going on, especially when I'm running it. But I really enjoyed recording the games and listening back to what we did and just reliving those moments. And I wanted to share that with the players at my table as well. And so I would just pile all of this into a Google Drive for people to listen to. And those recordings were for nobody but ourselves and, our table, our group of friends. But I ran out of storage. Everything was being recorded and saved on my laptop, my like 10-year-old laptop. So I ran out of storage and I didn't have a place to keep it anymore. And I was also to the point where I was having to pay for more storage in our Google Drive as well, just to like maintain the player's access to all of that. And that just wasn't working out. So I looked to YouTube. It's free to make a channel, and once I upload this stuff onto YouTube, I don't have to keep it on my end anymore. It's just there. It doesn't even have to be listed to the public. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter to me if it was monetized or not. It was suddenly there. And so that's really where the YouTube stuff started. It was just a means of recording and saving and storing our audio recordings for campaign 1. It's super funny. It's an interesting way to start, I think. But somewhere in the process of all of that, I decided to make the first ever like D&D tip video for the channel. And really, I only made that video because I wanted to teach myself how to do it. I wanted to teach myself how to edit. And I think that's just a good way to start learning how to do anything, is to just jump in and do it, get your hands on the experience of doing that. And like as you go, you will learn more things about yourself, your own process, what you like, what you dislike, how the programs work. And yeah, I dove in and tried it out. Nobody watched that first video. I think some people have watched it now, but nobody watched it at the time. And gosh, I hate going back and looking at it. It's so obvious that it was like the first video, but hey, it taught me a lot about the process, and that was a great experience. A decent amount of time went by before I made another video, and that was the like Curse of Strahd video, the I don't even remember. Is it 10 ways how to make Curse of Strahd better? Is it 10 or 5? I don't remember. But that one weirdly just sort of blew up out of nowhere. It was like the second video I had made of that kind. And yeah, it's so strange. I really think a lot of that was just like luck. I think it came out at the right time and was about the right thing. Like I put it out in October, and it's about Curse of Strahd, which is vampires, so people want the spooky things in October. Also, Curse of Strahd is like the most, popular and famous module for 5e. And then, a lot of people, when they're running published modules, they want advice on how to run aspects of the game. They also want ways to make it more interesting or separate it from, what's actually printed in the book. I know when I ran that, I was looking for the same things. I was looking for the same kind of advice. So it's not necessarily surprising that that did well. It's just like funny. I don't know. It was just weird. And then nothing was ever as successful as that one video, which is, that's just how it goes, man. It's never the stuff that you want to take off that takes off. It's always like something completely different. But yeah, that really, what was good about that video being super successful, even if the rest of this stuff isn't, is that it kind of very quickly helped me get monetized, and gave me a base of subscribers, which is really, really nice. And that meant that I could start making some amount of money off of the YouTube channel, and D&D could kind of pay for itself. I mean, D&D isn't necessarily like the most expensive hobby. I think it can be expensive if you want it to. But I do think for like online groups, there are a number of subscriptions and things that you kind of need to have the online experience be in any way similar to an in-person experience, whether that is paying for some sort of like video chat service, or paying for, Roll20 or Foundry, having the nice pretty maps to use or the cute little tokens to use, having good audio. All of that stuff costs money. It doesn't necessarily have to be recurring payments, but some of those things are. And at least being able to make just the smallest amount from YouTube to help pay for that was really nice. But I think ultimately the takeaway here is that the channel was for my players first, and I think it still is in a lot of ways. I will go weeks without posting a tip video, but we're always playing the D&D game. That's going to be the most consistent aspect of that channel, and I think that's a really good thing. So let's talk about some equipment. Let's talk about audio first. So everything that I have done, everything that I have put out on the channel I have done using an external microphone. Yeah, and I think that that is always a good start. It means that all of my recordings have decent-ish audio, at least on my end. Obviously, there is a huge difference between early recordings and now, but I've always been fairly satisfied with my own audio in most videos, and it's only improved over time. But there is sort of like a back story, a background to why I've had the external microphones and stuff to have better audio. So I've talked about it before here on the channel, but I'm a choir teacher. I'm a musician. And there is a little bit more to it than that. So in my earlier days of DMing, while I was DMing my first ever campaign, I was actually working on my master's degree at Belmont University for pretty much the majority of that campaign, and the majority or a good chunk of what we call campaign one. I was studying vocal pedagogy, and that involved taking a lot of voice lessons. It also involved giving a lot of voice lessons. And yeah, music has always been such an important aspect of my life. It's something that I love. Normally, this wouldn't involve an external microphone, not the kind of music that I do. Classical singing, that kind of stuff, you don't use microphones for that. You're singing over an orchestra, over an instrument. You are not singing with, some sort of electronic amplification to aid you there. However, right in the middle of my degree, the pandemic hit. Suddenly, all of my classes, my voice lessons, and my own private voice studio all had to transition to being online only. And yeah, it was basically like a full year before I could even be in the same room as my voice teacher. And I was only allowed to have 6 people attend my my lecture recital at the culmination of my master's degree, the final performance to represent everything I had worked on for those 2 years. I could only invite 6 people to witness it, as opposed to having a room full of people, which is what is normally allowed. And yeah, it was not the ideal experience at all. I even had to hood myself in my graduation ceremony. So we all have our own tales from the pandemic, and that's a little bit of mine. But having to transition to being online gave myself a really good argument for needing a better microphone. The little microphone on my laptop was just not going to cut it anymore. I needed something more substantial, for my voice lessons, for my voice studio. But the added bonus is it improved my games as well. Almost all of my DMing has taken place online. When I was handed the reins and became the DM for our table, we all moved to different cities, but we still wanted to play together. So we've been playing online. And I think my audio probably sucked for a lot of those beginning sessions. But because of the pandemic and needing better equipment and having to be online so much, I got a nice microphone. And I know, at least on my end, that improved our sessions exponentially. The first ever microphone that I used was the Yeti Blue USB microphone, and this is a really good starter. It's around $100. I think I got mine with like a bundle for maybe $150 that came with a pop filter and some really nice headphones, and it was good. It's a good start for podcasting and recording audio. It has like a little mixer built in, which gives you a little bit of control without needing like a full mixer board or anything like that. The USB connectivity is really nice. It means you don't have to go get like XLR cables and find a way to hook that up to your computer and all of that stuff. So that is really, really good. It's a nice beginner-friendly microphone, and it's easy to use. A couple of my players actually use these now. I will say it definitely has its limitations. I feel like it noise gates a little bit too much. Yeah, and you have to be really like right up on it to get decent sound in my opinion, which make which makes it not super conducive to singing, but I imagine that's not necessarily the goal for a lot of you. Not too long ago I upgraded my microphone to the Rode NT1 5th generation, and this is a really really nice microphone, but I feel like I should warn you about a couple of things. So the one that I got has both USB-C and XLR connectivity. Like that's, how you're connecting to your mixer or your computer or whatever. And to get both, it costs a little bit more. This microphone was about 250. Getting the XLR only version of this microphone is cheaper, and honestly, that's probably what you need to do, because I found that the USB just like didn't work very well. I had trouble getting my computer to recognize that it was there. I went through a couple cables and it was weird. It wasn't necessarily the computer didn't see that it was there, but there's like a built-in program that's supposed to act like a mixer board for your microphone that you can download onto your computer, and it just never detected the microphone at all, so that was super frustrating. I will also say with the USB, the microphone just wasn't really getting enough power to amplify in the way that it really needs to be functional. You really need a mixer with phantom power built in to make this microphone work the way it's supposed to. So that's what I ended up doing. I got this cheap, tiny little like personal mixer board, and that's been fantastic. So I got the Mauno gaming audio mixer, and it's tiny, it's pretty cheap. It's like 40 bucks. And yeah, it does everything I need it to do. And I did end up using the XLR cables with this, but this gave me control over the microphone's audio volume as well as the desktop audio volume. It also has some noise reduction built in, and then I can also finagle with like, the gain and all of that stuff. So this really is the best. It's the best sound I've ever had. It also, this microphone, it can cover a really wide range of volumes. So I can sing into this microphone, I can speak into this microphone, and it's going to be able to handle all of that. It's not going to just like noise gate me with the smallest little uptick in sound, which is great. Now the Rode mic, it's not cheap. I also looked at the Shure one as well, but in my research, it sounded like the Rode was better for singing, and I know that that's something that I do on occasion. So that's why I went with this one instead of the Shure. The Shure is used by like podcasters everywhere. Like everybody's using that microphone. So I don't think you can go wrong with that. But like it's also expensive. I will say with the mixer that I use, depending on the auxiliary cord that I have plugged into it and then plugged into my headphones, I will get a little bit of like a kind of a fuzzy sound in the background that I hear in my ears. And, depending, like, it's not always there if I'm using like a different kind of auxiliary cord. Sometimes it's not there, but I do notice that. But when I am recording and I go listen back to the recording, it's not there at all. So it's just something that I hear, but it's not showing up in the recording. So it's okay. Okay, let's talk about recording software. I use Audacity. I use Audacity because it's free and it's good. It does everything I need it to do. I was very familiar with it even before. I will say D&D specifically taught me about the process of recording live audio into Audacity. Like I had used it to edit pre-existing tracks before, but I had never like recorded stuff into it. And, recording my games taught me more about that process. I learned a few things through that. I learned about the balance between the music and the voices during a recording. You got to keep that music really, really low. I definitely did not do that correctly every single time. It also taught me that everybody in the game needs to be wearing headphones in some way. This helps limit like feedback or echoes from like their own computer playing the audio that they're hearing. It also taught me that muting is super important during a game. Most of my players keep themselves muted unless they are talking. This limits crosstalk. It makes it really easy to, direct our focus and attention at whoever is sort of taking over the scene during a game. So it definitely taught me that muting is super important. And it also taught me that I have to do a little bit of work on this audio to make everything feel more even in the end result. Every audio recording that I make ends up having to be compressed, and then I have to put it through normalizing to kind of get all of those, instead of having some really high peaks and low valleys, it kind of evens everything out just a little bit more as the end result. And you don't get as many variances between volume level among all of my players. Next, let's move on to video. So for the start of making tip videos, I used my phone. I used my like old crappy iPhone to record video, and there are pros to this. I feel like most iPhones have a pretty decent video and create a pretty nice image. But what was frustrating about this was like there was always inconsistency in the camera placement because, once I'm done filming the video, I need my phone, to live as a human in today's world. And so every time I take my phone out and put it back, that placement gets adjusted slightly. Also, I have limited storage on my phone. So I can't keep those videos on my phone. I have to put them to the computer, and that always took a bit of time just to like wait for that upload or wait to send that file over to the computer. That was a slower process. It slowed down some of the editing a bit. I do still use my phone on occasion. I used it in the like what's behind my DM screen video. I use it every time I do like a skit. Those skit videos, those are still filmed on my phone. So it still happens from time to time. But nowadays, I use essentially a webcam that I have set up in the exact same place all the time, every time. And the webcam that I use is a Logitech webcam. It's the Logitech C920X HD Pro. And it works pretty good. It's not super expensive. It's like $60. And, I was looking because I want to, share all the links to all the stuff that I use. I was looking and I saw that they actually bundle the Logitech camera with the Blue Yeti right now for like $150, which is pretty decent to get both. So yeah, I will say with the Logitech camera, it's really not useful unless you can mess around with the settings. I feel like with its like base settings, it sucks. So you're definitely gonna want like an application to go along with it. There's like a Logitech like capture app that works with the camera, and this allows me to adjust like whether I want autofocus or not. It lets me adjust the white balance, like how far zoomed in it is, if I'm prioritizing frame rate or exposure. So definitely, if you're gonna use that kind of camera, you need a way to mess around with the settings. Honestly, if you're going to use any camera, you're going to need a way to mess around with the settings. A lot of times the default is not the best. So, definitely keep that in consideration when you are trying to figure out, what camera you're using and how you want to use it. None of this is for creating cinematic masterpieces. So, maybe newer models of the iPhone would, but like, my model of the iPhone and my webcam, they're not going to cut it. So, keep that in mind. The best way to improve your video quality is mostly going to be lighting. Like, regardless of your camera, you need light to make it look in any way decent. I have two lights pointed at me right now, and that certainly helps clear up the image. It helps remove the noise in the background. You're gonna want light. You don't want a fuzzy image that's struggling to focus. You want something that feels crystal clear. I will say I recommend warmer colored light. I feel like the blue lights, well, I mean, for me especially, they just wash me out. I look dead under them. The warmer lights are definitely so much better. And I will say, I have had times where, like, even though if the light's on a warm setting, it still feels very cool toned to me. I will put like a yellow sticky note on it so that it's like more of a warm color and it's not as yeah, washing me out and is draining. For video chat, I use Zoom, but that's not always been the case. When we started playing our games online, we used Roll20 for the longest time. Roll20 has a built-in video chat, and I will say at the very start, it sucked. It was terrible, but it did start to get better. I think once it really took off during the pandemic, they tried to make a lot of changes to help it improve. And eventually all of that settled out and they were able to accommodate the number of people using Roll20. And yeah, it got a lot better and it was fairly reliable. One of my favorite things about using the Roll20 video chat was the whisper ability that you could have where you could just like pull one of your players aside and whisper to them and talk to them privately. That was so nice. But they introduced an update in like April of 2023 that I don't know what they did. It was supposed to improve things, but it made the video chat like just not functional for the majority of my table. It made it pretty much impossible for all of us to use it. We just could not connect. People weren't coming through. People's computers were crashing. It was rough. This happened. You can actually like see where we switch from Roll20 to something else. In Campaign 2, Episode 29, we switch to Google Meets because we can't use Roll20 anymore. And this was a year into Campaign 2, and we had already been playing all of Campaign 1 in Roll20 as well. So it was frustrating that this happened, but actually this was a good move. So we switched to Google Meets. Why did we switch to Google Meets? Well, we tried Discord, which is what everybody else likes to use, but it wasn't working for us. My computer, along with a couple others, kept crashing like mid video call, and it just wasn't working for us. But Google Meets wasn't perfect. We were trying to operate on the free version, which means we could only have meetings for a certain amount of time, and then we would get kicked off. In several recordings in Campaign 2, you can hear the notification warning us that we have a limited amount of time left before the meeting is going to end. And so that was fun. We'd have to leave and then come back in. It kind of forced us to take multiple breaks during a campaign session instead of just one, because we would all get like kicked. But you know, such is life. At least it was free. And I will say also in Google Meets, we would get like an odd feedback sound from time to time. I think it actually does show up in the recordings. It's a sort of like robot-y feedback sound. Yeah, didn't love that, but it worked for a while. It was fine. We all had access to it. It was fairly reliable. We didn't have issues like with Google Meets working. It just wasn't as polished and nice as, you know, maybe we would have wanted. I think the limited meeting times and that feedback sound really got to me. I was trying really hard to have better audio quality for the, you know, entire session, not just my audio, but like the player's audio and how that balances with everything else. So I think that's why we ultimately switched to Zoom. Zoom is what I used throughout the pandemic. It's what Belmont primarily used for our classes, for voice lessons, all of those things. So I had experience having a subscription for Zoom. I knew how it worked, and it was pretty dang reliable. So we switched to Zoom sometime in 2024, and I guess the biggest downfall for this is like it costs money, but it's definitely far superior. And that was a cost that like everybody at the table was cool with, like shouldering a bit. So yeah, the good thing about this, no limited meeting times. I also had control over the player placement within the meeting. So, you know, when you like join a meeting, everybody, their placement in that meeting depends on when they joined and like all of that stuff. So, that's the same for Discord, for Google Meets. You know, it's sort of a jumbled mess on where people are. And, you know, in Roll20, I could move them around, but I couldn't move them around in Google Meets. I couldn't move them around in Discord. And so it wasn't until Zoom that I got that ability back and I could choose where the players show up in the Zoom meeting, which I really, really liked. I felt like them having a consistent placement, one was good for like all of my overlays and graphics, but two is also good for you guys and like getting used to them and learning who they are. That's a little easier if they're in the same place every time. I mean, think about it. In-person games, there's a specific way that like the Critical Role group sits at a table for a given campaign. And it would be weird if throughout campaign 2 they just randomized where they sat every single session. That would be kind of odd. Something else that's nice about Zoom is you have built-in noise cancellation for the audio, which is nice. No more like weird echoey sounds when people forget to mute themselves or forget to wear headphones. You also have some like camera settings and filters, which is really, really nice. It's annoying that like this keeps me from using my own camera application, but Zoom's settings are pretty good and they help mitigate that quite a lot. So that's something nice. It kind of also helped my players feel like they had some control in their own camera feed and they could, you know, adjust that or elevate that if they really wanted to. Next, let's talk about like, you know, the different graphics and stuff that I use for campaigns, for tip videos, all of that stuff. So these are like the overlays that go over the camera so it doesn't look like we're all sitting in a Zoom meeting. These are the little like pop-ups that tell you to subscribe or to like and comment and all of that stuff. So most of these I make myself. All of the overlays for all of our campaigns and stuff, I make those myself. And you would be surprised where I started making these things, okay? I told you at the beginning of this that I am on a budget. I am cheap. I don't want to break the bank on a lot of things. I also don't necessarily have the time to sit down and learn how to use a bunch of fancy programs and stuff. I don't want to pay somebody else to do it when I can learn how to do it myself. The first overlays for our D&D campaigns I made in Word. Microsoft Word, baby. That is right. Yeah, I made like the little like, you know, borders and stuff that went around everybody's cameras and, you know, sectioned off the chat on the side from the map in the middle. I made all of that in Word. That's right. That's right. And you know, honestly, it worked pretty good for us for a very, very long time. Eventually, I graduated from using Word to using some things that are more substantial but still kind of cheap. I make a lot of stuff in Canva to be honest these days. It's free, which is great. I also have access to a lot of the like premium tools because my school uses Canva, and so I can use that to get access to a lot of those like more premium features. And so you can create a lot of stuff in Canva that looks really, really nice. Like, you know, the overlays that I'm using right now in campaign 3, all of the overlays that I used for all of the one shots that we just did, and most of the, actually, is it all, or I think it's just most of the overlays that we used for campaign 2. All of those were in Canva, and they're really good. You can, sometimes I make this as like a still image that I, you know, just put into OBS when I'm getting ready to record and like put it over the image. But sometimes it's like a video that plays on loop as we're running the session and stuff. It really depends, but there's a lot of stuff you can do there for pretty cheap, and it's so easy. I mean, for where all the cameras are, it's normally just like bright green or some other color, and I can just chroma key that out, and yeah, works great for me. Um, so yeah, I have also used Adobe Express. I've used that. I've thought about using it for the overlays. I just already have so much stuff in Canva that it's like I don't need to make a new overlay. I don't want to get overlay crazy. So I need to make myself stop. There was a while there in campaign 2 where the overlay changed like every 5 episodes, and so I'm trying to dial that back. I will say with Adobe Express, it's definitely not free. So keep that into consideration. You're paying money for that. You have access to a lot of really cool tools, but I will say Canva does a lot of the same stuff. And in some ways, Canva has some functionality and tools that are better than Adobe Express, but also the same could be true the other way around. So just something to keep in consideration. I find like both I can do pretty much everything I want, but Adobe Express is not free. I will say nowadays, primarily, I am just using Adobe for thumbnails, and I could probably achieve that in Canva if I really, really wanted to. And something else to consider with Adobe Express is like all of their art libraries, like, you know, that's what I loved. They had these extensive libraries of art and media that was royalty free, but now most of that is like just filled with AI art, and it can be a little frustrating to like not be sure if the assets that you're using in a thumbnail are like created by a human or not. So just something to keep in mind. So all of those overlays I make myself. Most of the like little pop-ups about subscribing and commenting and like what my Instagram is and stuff, that is all stuff that I make myself as well. But I will say the title sequences are normally a combination of things that I create and then like templates and stuff that I use from other websites. I have primarily used Video Bolt for these. It's a subscription service, but it gives you access to a bunch of different templates where you can, you know, find title sequences, your like lower third overlays and things. And these are really, really nice. They're often super high quality, and you can go in and sort of customize them a little bit, which is really nice too. I try not to maintain the subscription for like the whole year. I'll just like buy a month or two and do the work that I need, download that, and then I've got it, and we're good. Places where I've used the like Video Bolt templates, my opening like Misfit Adventurers little graphic that I made there, the like book opening like scene for the campaign opening, that's from there. The like turning pages on the new like one shot intro, that is from there as well. So yeah, and you can find those and on there and customize them and make them your own as well. When it comes to music, when we started, a lot of that music was like from movies and TV and video games. And remember, when we started, those recordings were for just us. They weren't meant to go anywhere. So I was using music that I didn't have the rights to. And that's why several of the audio recordings of Campaign 1, they're not monetized. They can't be because they use like music from like movies and stuff. So yeah, that's definitely like once I started posting those recordings to YouTube, I was like, oh right, that's gonna be an issue if I ever wanted to like actually have a full campaign that was fully monetized. And so like there's a switch partway through campaign 1 where I stop using like TV and movie music, and I switch primarily to like music from video games is typically fine, because most of that's royalty free anyway, or like it's not gonna get flagged on YouTube because people record themselves playing video games all the time. But I switched to like royalty free music. I've used a lot of Monument Studios audio, but I try to find from other places as well. other royalty-free music sources. But some of the music is stuff that I compose myself. The intro and outro music for campaigns 1, 2, and 3 is all stuff that I've made, I've composed. So yeah, it's just sort of a big mix of all different sources, all different things. When it comes to actually capturing the video and stuff during the game, I use OBS. And I use OBS because, like Audacity, it is free. I will say OBS captures audio as well, but I have found it extremely useful to be a bit redundant and capture both. So, yeah, I capture video and audio through OBS, but I also capture audio through Audacity. And that way, if something goes wrong, I lose a bit of audio or lose a bit of video, I have that redundancy there and I can kind of save myself when I'm going through and editing. I will say for my campaigns, I am limited on time. We record our games Sunday night, and the game is going to be posted typically Friday morning. So I have the week to edit it and get it ready to put out, but I also work throughout the week, and like public education is no joke. It's so exhausting, and I don't have a lot of free time to work on that throughout the week. So I try to record everything pretty much the way it's going to be shown to you guys. So all of those overlays, all of those graphics, all of those things are loaded into OBS. And throughout the game, I am switching between multiple like shots and scenes and cameras. I switch from, the full party, just our faces talking. I will switch over to the map. I now have different overlays for each character when it's their turn in combat and we're looking at the map. And, I've got these different graphics at play that tell you to subscribe and leave a comment and where to find us on Instagram. I do all of that in the moment. And also, at the same time, I'm running the game, entertaining my full table of players, switching music between different scenes, juggling stat blocks. It's like so much multitasking. It is a lot. But I try to do all of that when it's actually happening so that I don't have to edit nearly as much. And it's a lot. It's a lot of work up front, but it's so much less work in the edit, which is really, really nice. And let's talk about editing. So I actually use Shotcut as my editing software, and it's free, which is great. It's not like the best, nicest thing, but it's solid. It does all the basic things that you need it to do. I'm not trying to do anything crazy and flashy here. So it works great for me and I know how to use it well. I will say it does have a tendency to crash when it has to think just a little bit too hard. So keep that in mind. But yeah, it's worked fine for me. The campaign is largely unedited. I don't really change much. You get as close to the actual session experience as possible, which is really nice. I only edit out the technical difficulties, long pauses during combat, or long pauses when we're switching between RP to a combat encounter. There's a little bit of post-game chat and pre-game chat that kind of gets cut out, but for the most part you're getting everything, which is nice. For the tip videos, it's definitely more edited than the campaign, but not as much as you might think. I'm really only editing out pauses and the occasional flub, but I don't write a true script. I will just sort of bullet point ideas and then just sort of speak off the cuff. I really don't like trying to read a script. One, I don't have time to memorize one, and two, it just feels a little less authentic to me, but that's my own personal take there. But for the most part, my audio and video is unedited, but I will add in fun little clips and graphics and stuff like that to keep it interesting. So that's it. That's my whole process. That's why I have the channel and how it has changed and evolved over time and all the different things that I use. And it's been a long process to get into this sort of routine, and I'm still learning to improve it every single day. Yeah, it's always there's always more to learn. There's always more that can be done and little changes that can be made. I feel like even not too long ago, my style for my tip videos has started to evolve and change with time as well. So yeah, I'm super happy with the quality of the stuff that I put out these days, and I'm really, really happy with the quality of campaign 3 out the gate. Like, as much as I love campaign 2, and I love seeing the journey and the progression throughout that campaign, it is a little bit frustrating to know that, like, the first episode or the first, like, several episodes aren't, like, as good as they could have been. And so I'm so happy that, like, campaign 3 from the start has felt way more polished and something that I can be way more proud of in terms of, like, the quality of the video. I'm always confident in the quality of the content, but the quality of the video, I've been really, really pleased with that. Yeah, past recordings, it's always like a love-hate relationship, right? To, like, see the imperfections on full display and to see, like, what you lacked at the time, but it's always so good to see that so that you can see how much you've grown and how far you've come. I think that's super important. It's always a huge aspect of, like, learning to sing and stuff too. You have to see what you're doing. You have to critique yourself now and in the past so that you know what to improve and how to get better and where to improve. And the same is true with, I think, most anything where you're perfecting some sort of, like, craft that you're doing. Yeah. I love how much campaign 2 is a journey, but I love, you know, seeing campaign 3 now in comparison. And I'm also excited to see how this campaign, develops and changes and gets better as we play through it in the next, like, couple of years as well. That is it. That's the whole process. I have no idea if any of y'all even cared about this content or want to see it, but I think for some reason I just wanted to make it and document it. So here it is for you. If any of this was useful, if any of this was helpful to you, feel free to like and subscribe. That stuff is really helpful. Way more important, leave me a comment down below. If you can think of something else that's maybe budget friendly and super useful that I might benefit from, tell me about it. If you have any questions about, recording stuff yourself or have encountered any issues and maybe, want to run things by me, leave me a comment down below. If you just want to say hi and talk to me, leave a comment down below. All of that's great. The engagement on these videos is what helps people find the channel. And yeah, that's always super helpful. But with all of that said and done, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week, and I'll see you again next time.